James Myers here from LePage First Contact Realty in Barrie, Ontario. With so many houses selling for so far over their market value in the past few months, it can become a bit of a problem at closing time. The guy signs an offer to buy a house for $600,000, the bank tells him it's only worth $500,000, and they're only going to lend him a mortgage based on the appraised value. So what's the guy going to do now? A few different scenarios could take place. The buyer may decide to just walk away from that deposit. This is not allowed, and the buyer is potentially breaking the contract. Now, that deposit does not automatically go to the seller either. I did a video a few months ago about what happens to the deposit when a real estate deal fails to close. The buyer doesn't get away scot-free either. The seller has every right to sue them. They would put the house back on the market, and if they sold it for less money, they could sue the buyer to recoup any of the losses they took on a lower price sale, and also any related expenses, moving costs, bridge financing costs, that kind of thing. Another thing that can happen is the buyer has to come up with some more money down. As I mentioned earlier, the guy signs an offer to buy a house for $600,000. The bank says, hey, we got a problem. It's only worth $500,000. You got to come up with some more money. So the guy could sell his yacht, he could get a second mortgage, or he could ask his rich uncle for it. A third way this can be dealt with is the buyer and seller renegotiate the purchase price of the house. And this will take a very level-headed and kind of unemotional type seller to do this. Seller realizes the market's changed, and if the buyer walks on the deal, he's back to square one. Puts his house back on the market, more showings in a somewhat deflated market, and it's going to take longer to sell. So maybe the seller agrees to hold a second mortgage for the buyer or something like that. The buyer and seller can renegotiate new terms. There's so much emotion involved for both the buyer and the seller when a situation like this happens. There's anger and there's worry. It's tough to take that out and deal with it rationally. A lot of it depends on the temperament and the financial position of each of the parties involved. The buyer may have bought this house and sold his existing house, and now he can't get this house in particular, so he's worried about being homeless. Or the seller has sold this house because they're moving on to something else, and now they can't buy their next house, so they're worried about having to carry two houses. When this low appraisal scenario happens, people tend to think, oh, that's the buyer's problem, let the buyer deal with it. Well, legally it is the buyer's problem, but realistically it's everybody's problem, and the best way to deal with it is to tackle it head on. All parties involved should be having discussions and negotiations and helping them bring the deal to closing. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.